We've got breaking news, and if you're a 49ers fan, you probably felt this one immediately. The Seattle Seahawks just reached into Kyle Shanahan's staff and hired Brian Flurry as their new offensive coordinator. And this isn't just some random assistant leaving for a lateral move. This is the defending Super Bowl champion Seahawks taking a coach directly from your building and plugging him into one of the most important roles on their staff. That should bother you a little bit. Seattle just won it all. They're not rebuilding. They're not searching for an identity. They're doubling down, and instead of going outside the system, they stayed inside the Shanahan coaching tree again. After Clint Kubiak left to become a head coach, Mike Macdonald didn't pivot away from that structure. He went right back to it and targeted Brian Flurry. That tells you something. It tells you that even after beating the 49ers, even after shutting down Shanahan's offense in the biggest moments, Seattle still believes the offensive blueprint in San Francisco is one of the best in football. And instead of trying to reinvent the wheel, they're stealing pieces of it. Brian Flurry had been the 49ers tight ends coach and run game coordinator. He's been in that building for years, learning directly under Shanahan, understanding the details of the scheme, the timing, the motion packages, the run fits, the play sequencing. He knows how this offense is built from the inside out. Now he's in Seattle, and here's the part that makes this sting more. This came out of nowhere. There weren't rumors swirling. There wasn't buzz building. It just dropped. 1 minute he's part of the Niners' future plans, the next he's coordinating an offense for your division rival. Let me ask you this. How concerned are you about losing Brian Flurry on a scale of 1 to 10? Be honest. Is this a 3 and you think it's replaceable? Or is this closer to an 8 because Seattle keeps getting stronger while the Niners keep losing pieces? Drop your number in the comments. And if you want to stay ahead of every coaching move, every front office shift, every roster change, this is exactly why you subscribe. We're pushing toward 1,000 subscribers, and the goal is to build the smartest Niners community on YouTube. Not reactionary, not emotional, but informed and sharp. So hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next development. Now, zoom out for a second. This isn't the first time Shanahan's staff has been picked apart. That's what happens when you win, when you consistently contend, when your offense becomes the model. Other teams take your coaches. That's the cost of success. But there's something different about this one. This is Seattle, the team that just knocked you out, the team that now sits at the top of the division. And instead of fading after the coordinator left, they immediately replaced him with another mind from the same offensive lineage. That shows intent. Mike Macdonald clearly values continuity within this system. He understands how dangerous the Shanahan structure can be when executed correctly. And instead of fighting it, he's importing it. So here's the yes or no question for you. Does this move help Seattle more than it hurts San Francisco? I want a straight answer, yes or no in the comments. Because this story isn't just about one assistant coach leaving. It's about what Seattle sees in this offense. And it's about whether the 49ers can afford to keep losing key pieces while trying to chase a Super Bowl. And when we look deeper at who Brian Flurry actually is and why Seattle specifically targeted him, the picture gets even more interesting. When you really start digging into who Brian Flurry is, this move becomes even more fascinating. Because Seattle didn't just hire a random position coach. They hired someone with a layered background, someone who has seen football from almost every angle possible. Flurry's coaching journey isn't linear. It's not the typical straight offensive ladder where someone starts as a quality control assistant and climbs one side of the ball. He's coached defense. He's coached special teams. He's worked with linebackers, defensive backs, tight ends, and eventually coordinated the run game. That kind of cross-functional experience is rare, and it matters. He played quarterback in college, so he understands offensive structure and timing from a signal caller's perspective. Then early in his coaching career, he worked on the defensive side of the ball. That gives him insight into how defenses disguise coverages, how they respond to motion, how they adjust to shifts and personnel groupings. For a play caller, that's valuable. Before arriving in San Francisco, he spent time with the Buffalo Bills and the Cleveland Browns in various assistant roles. When he joined the 49ers staff, he started working with linebackers before eventually transitioning fully to offense. That shift is important. It means Kyle Shanahan trusted his football IQ enough to move him across the ball and integrate him into the offensive brain trust. By 2022, Flurry became the tight ends coach. And let's not pretend that's a minor position in this offense. In Shanahan's system, the tight end is critical. It's not just a pass catcher. It's a run blocker, a motion piece, a mismatch creator. Developing that room is essential to making the scheme function. George Kittle has spoken highly of him. The development of depth tight ends over the past few seasons didn't happen by accident. Flurry helped shape that group, and in 2025, he added the title of run game coordinator. That tells you Shanahan saw him as more than just a position coach. He had influence over how the run game was structured week to week. Now, yes, the 49ers' run production hasn't looked as dominant lately. But let's be honest with each other, was that a scheme problem? Or was that an offensive line issue? Was that injuries? Personnel turnover? Because historically, this system works. It has worked everywhere it's been installed correctly. Seattle clearly believes Flurry's knowledge of that structure is transferable. Mike McDonald wanted continuity after Clint Kubiak left. Instead of pivoting to a completely new philosophy, he chose someone who understands the same offensive DNA. That's strategic. Let me ask you this. If you were in charge, would you have promoted Flurry internally to offensive coordinator before Seattle could grab him? Yes or no? I'm curious how aggressive you think the 49ers should be when protecting their staff. And while you're down there in the comments, hit that like button if you appreciate breaking this stuff down beyond just surface level headlines. The goal here isn't just to react, it's to understand what's happening beneath the surface. Because this hire says something bigger. It says the Shanahan coaching tree continues to shape the league. Teams keep pulling branches off of it, and that's a compliment to the system. But it's also a challenge for San Francisco. The more coaches you lose, the harder it becomes to maintain continuity internally. And here's where this conversation shifts. Because losing assistants is part of being successful. But when you combine that with roster questions, draft misses, and a growing gap in overall talent compared to Seattle and Los Angeles, now you're not just talking about coaching turnover anymore. You're talking about organizational direction. And that's where things get really interesting. Now we get to the part of this conversation that might make some people uncomfortable. Because this isn't just about losing Brian Flurry. This is about where the 49ers stand compared to the rest of the NFC West. And if you're being honest with yourself, there's a real conversation to be had about the front office. When the 49ers were eliminated, the talent gap was noticeable. Seattle looked deeper, more explosive, more complete, and the Los Angeles Rams aren't exactly fading either. So the question becomes, how did we get here? John Lynch has done good things. Let's start there. He helped build teams that reached multiple NFC championship games. He helped assemble rosters that went to the Super Bowls. That matters. You don't erase that. But in the last few years, the draft hit rate, especially in rounds 1 through 3, hasn't been strong enough. And that's where contenders separate themselves. You have to hit on premium picks. You have to find starters, impact players, cost-controlled contributors. And when you miss often, it catches up to you. There were draft classes that simply didn't deliver enough high-end talent. That led to a reset year. That led to eating massive dead cap. That led to watching proven veterans walk out the door because you couldn't sustain the structure. Meanwhile, look at Seattle under John Schneider. Look at the Rams under Les Snead. They've continued to find impact. Contributors. They've remained aggressive. They've maintained roster flexibility. And then there's Howie Roseman in Philadelphia. His strategy is aggressive but calculated. He gets ahead of contracts instead of waiting. He doesn't lean on franchise tags. He anticipates market jumps and locks in talent early. That's forward-thinking cap management. So let me ask you directly, should the 49ers move on from John Lynch as general manager? Yes or no? This isn't personal. This is an emotional dot. It's about competitive reality. Because right now, if you rank general managers in the NFC West based on recent roster construction, it's fair to say Lynch isn't number one. And here's where timing becomes critical. The combine is approaching. Free agency follows. Then the draft. If an organization is going to make a structural change at general manager, it has to happen before those milestones. You cannot go through scouting meetings, prospect interviews, and contract negotiations with uncertainty at the top. If a move were to happen, it would need to happen quickly. And that's why the speculation even matters right now. There have been conversations about potentially elevating Lynch into a different executive role and bringing in someone else to handle day-to-day roster construction. If that were the route, the smarter play might be to go external. Bring in someone from a front office tree that's consistently producing results, whether that's Seattle's structure or Philadelphia's. because promoting internally doesn't necessarily change philosophy. It just changes titles. And if you believe the roster needs a philosophical shift, then that shift has to be real. If you want unfiltered front office discussions like this, the kind that don't just celebrate, but also question, make sure you're subscribed. We're building toward 1,000 subscribers, and this community should be where serious Niners conversations happen, not just highlight reactions. Now here's the twist in all of this. Even if you change the general manager tomorrow, there's one person whose influence runs deeper than anyone else in the building, and that's Kyle Shanahan. And this is where the conversation becomes less about titles and more about structure. Because no matter what happens with John Lynch, no matter who holds the general manager title, Kyle Shanahan is the most powerful voice in the organization. He has significant influence over personnel. He has earned that influence through years of success. But history tells us something important about this setup. When elite head coaches also carry heavy personnel control, it rarely stays balanced forever. And Reid experienced it in Philadelphia. Phenomenal coach. When roster control expanded afar, things slipped. Bill Belichick late in his Patriots tenure had enormous authority over drafting and roster building. The coaching acumen was still there, but the personnel decisions declined. It's simply too much responsibility for one person to carry at an elite level. Coaching alone is a full-time obsession. Designing game plans, adjusting weekly, managing staff, handling player development, that consumes everything. Adding full roster construction on top of that creates strain, even for the best football minds. Shanahan is brilliant offensively. There's no debate there. His system has reshaped the league. His coaching tree keeps expanding, but he hasn't won a Super Bowl yet. And when you're that close multiple times, sometimes the hardest question to ask is whether the structure around you needs refinement. Do you need stronger checks and balances? Do you need a front office presence that pushes back? Do you need clearer separation between coaching and roster authority? Because right now, Seattle looks stable. The Rams look structured. The Eagles look forward-thinking. And if the 49ers want to close the gap, something has to sharpen. The upcoming stretch is critical. The combine, free agency, the draft, these are defining weeks. If there's going to be change, it has to happen with clarity and purpose. You can't drift into the offseason hoping internal growth fixes structural issues. So I'll leave you with this. Do you trust Kyle Shanahan with this level of roster influence moving forward? Yes or no? Be honest, not emotional, just honest. If you value real conversations about where this team stands, not blind optimism, not negativity, but real analysis, make sure you subscribe. We're pushing toward 1,000 subscribers, and this channel should be where informed Niners fans gather when news breaks and when bigger questions need to be asked. And if this breakdown gave you something to think about, hit that like button so more faithful fans see it too.